All right, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner pod here on the Sports Talk Line Network. I am one of your hosts. I'm Raphael, joining you from the United States. Our usual cohort from the UK are with me today. Below me, to my right on your screen, Ryan. Welcome back, Ryan.
Hello, Raf. Hope you're doing well.
All is well. And next to Ryan is Sam. Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having us back.
Oh, always good. And then in the guest chair to my left on your screen, Jacob Weeks joining us from our group and from Patreon. Welcome back, Jacob. Good to have you back again.
Yeah, good to be back.
All right, a lot to cover in this episode. The 3-0 win over Sheffield United on the weekend, the vitally important second leg against Slavia Prague coming up in just 2 days. We'll talk summer shopping lists for Arsenal, some possible targets, some possible wish list. What positions are they going to prioritize? What names are they going to prioritize? Some rumors that these gentlemen below me have been getting, some really hot rumors to make you aware of. But first, we go back 5 days to a very disappointing first leg against Slavia Prague in the Emirates. 1-1 draw, slow to start, awful finish. Jacob, a very wasteful Arsenal over those 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think wasteful sums it up. We obviously had a couple of chances, Saka with a good one, and obviously the big one was Lacazette. I don't think anyone can still quite gather how he's missed that one. But yeah, hopefully it's rectifiable, I think, in the second leg, but he can't be that wasteful again.
All right, Sam, we learned some things. We learned Arsenal is a much faster club than Slavia Prague. I think that was especially obvious in the last half hour. But in the post-mortem, obviously, people, when your club loses, people fall back and they pick the bottle off the shelf of their favorite complaint. It was the manager, it was the player, it was the striker, it was the keeper, whomever they don't like. That's the first one that they go to. But in this case, I think there might have been a complaint that Mikel Arteta was late in his substitutions. He brought on in, I believe it was the 75th minute, Pepe, Martinelli, and Aubameyang, a whole new front line to replace his starters. And they started producing almost immediately. I mean, Pepe set up Aubameyang. Of course, he missed the third of the three, just glaring sitters. But then they came through with a goal. But it seemed that maybe had they come on a bit earlier, they might have produced even more.
Yeah, I think it's one of them ones where he's tried to ride it out a little bit to see whether the players on the pitch would sort the situation out before subs were needed. But ultimately, it's one of them ones where when do you go as the manager? Do you keep faith in what you've got on the pitch, considering they're still carving out chances, or do you completely revamp the forward line? For me personally, I think that he got the team selection wrong, because if you look at the previous games with Slavia Prague, they play a high line. Their back line is a slow paced back line. So I think we should have gone with pace from the off, personally. But yeah, I think the substitutions were too late. If you're going to be making substitutions, don't go into the famous Wenger zone of 70, 80 minutes to make them. You need to be doing them around 55, 60 minutes, for me personally, because then you're giving the players coming on 10 minutes to get up to the speed of the game, 10 minutes to then influence, and then a further 10 to really push and hammer home. But ultimately, it is what it is, and we move on to Thursday.
All right, Ryan, of course, let's go to the end, as painful as it was, because there's a lesson, I don't know if it's learned, but a lesson revisited, which is this club is fragile at the back. Now, they had some major injuries. Tierney wasn't there. Cedric is playing on the left, which is not his familiar position. Hector is back for the first time, playing extensive minutes for the first time in a long time. It looked like Arsenal was going to get away with it, but it caught up to them at the worst possible time.
Yeah, and it all came down to Arsenal playing around in their own half, as usual. Like, no team actually beats Arsenal. Arsenal beat themselves every single time. Cedric fires a pass into Gabriel while he's under pressure, and then we concede a corner from it, and lo and behold, we concede an equaliser. There's absolutely no need for Cedric to play that pass. When he received the ball, he had acres of space in front of him he could have run into, but because he's so one-footed, he's chopped back onto his right foot to play a pass that way, and then the opportunity to move forward is gone. And then we're left reeling from that.
Also, they seem a little frazzled. I mean, I want you to get your opinion on Gabriel. And we know he's got all the talent in the world. He's got the physical toolkit. He's got speed. He's big. He's aggressive. You know, we think of that wonder goal he scored on the header in the previous round of Europa League. But sometimes he gets a little hyperactive, and he seemed to be he wasn't without fault, I think, in those final minutes. He seemed a little hyperactive to my eyes, that he didn't calm his team.
I think in that last few minutes, it's a bit harsh to put any fault on him. The pass is literally fired at him, but you're right. He is very rash. He's very eager to impress. He's very enthusiastic, trying to win the ball back. But in that instance, I don't think he could have done much else other than try and clear the ball.
All right, we're going to revisit this because obviously the second leg is coming up, and you know there's a lot to ponder. What lineup does Mikel field this time? And he's going to use probably what he learned on the weekend to help him do that. And we'll talk about that just in a few minutes in the pod. But let's move to a happier result. Jacob, Mikel had to gather his team. I think even though it was a 1-1 draw, for many of them, it felt like a real disappointment, given that they were about 30 seconds from walking away, going to Slavia, having kept a clean sheet. You know, they continued that streak of not having a clean sheet. They go to Sheffield. They're even more reduced because of injuries and not wanting to risk players for the second leg. So no Odegaard, obviously, no Tierney, neither of the fullbacks. Cedric was not played. Hector was not played. So you wonder how he's going to do things. Let's tiny 3-0 win. Let's talk about his choices up top. He brought that forward line forward. He used Pepe. He used Martinelli on the wings. And I'll give you first crack. It was good to see Martinelli get 90 minutes. And he looked like he was more than capable, despite his injuries earlier.
Yeah, well, yeah, he definitely looked capable, and it was great to see him get a goal. I think when I looked at it, it surprised me how long it's been, obviously for various reasons, but given how quickly he started, it has been a while. And I think he'd be very happy himself to get the goal, build a bit of confidence in finally getting a few minutes behind him and building some momentum again. But yeah, seeing him back, and especially alongside some of the players he was in that kind of free behind a striker more than anything, just linking up was, yeah, you could see something building there.
And you could see incredible relief, Jacob, when he scored a goal. I mean, he was back and he made it count.
Yeah. Yeah, I think any player after such a long time without a goal, even if there are, you know, circumstances that are easy to say, yeah, it's understandable he hasn't scored a goal. I think any player, and especially a young player still trying to make his mark and get into this team as a consistent starter, like, yeah, it's got to be a relief. And I think it's a good thing all round for him and for the club that he's getting a goal again.
All right, Sam, interesting choice in the midfield. We were pondering, where is Saka going to play? I think there was a lot of speculation going into the first Slavia Prague match that Bukayo Saka was going to be the left back because he played there last year when there was nobody else to play left back. And we know Kieran Tierney's not going to play, and he might not play again for the rest of the season. You know, I think there's still a slight chance if they make it to the Europa final that he could be back for that match, but nothing sooner than that. And then given the disappointment, the way that the fullbacks had kind of fallen down at the end of the first match, that Saka had to play there. But Saka was played in an injuries position in the midfield, and he made the best of it.
Yeah, I think with Saka, we're seeing with him again that he's able to play a multitude of positions and to play it quite well as well. I like the way that he was linking in with Pepe and how close he was to Pepe to help Pepe essentially bring out the better Pepe on the right hand side. But I think if this is a player moving forward, it's one that's doable, but I still think Saka's skill set is more of a winger than a inside or creative midfielder. But it's credit to the manager actually, because it completely baffled Sheffield United, because they would have expected Ceballos to be in at that number 10 and Xhaka to be in the midfield. But we've got to give props to Xhaka as well, actually, because him being on the left back side, he's still dominating that area, which then enables the front three to play high. And if Xhaka's able to do that, then that gives Saka the room that he needs to operate in to link up with the two base midfielders and the attacking line in and around him. So ultimately, I was happy with how he played, but again, props to the manager and props to players playing out of position.
I want you to say a little bit more about this, because again, there was moments at the beginning where you said there's two guys who have played on the right wing, and Saka and Pepe, and they were together. And there were a lot of times where they were interchanging on the right side. You had both of them on one side of the pitch, kind of overloading and giving a lot of problems. But then we saw Lacazette, and we'll talk a little bit more about him having a good match. But I saw his usual thing of dropping deep. So it seems like in some cases he was dropping into the 10, or some cases Saka was there, or Saka would float outside and Pepe would move inside. And they were totally confused of like position, like who's coming in, who do we pick up?
Yeah, and it's that into fluidity within the team. It enables our players to pick up positions that are unorthodox, and basically the defenders that are supposed to be marking the players can't come out to meet them essentially, or stand with them, because if that player then gets dragged inside, say who was it, Egan with Saka, say Saka was to float outside, Egan wouldn't feel comfortable on the outside. Likewise, if he was to come in a deeper role, then Egan wouldn't be able to follow. So it's a case of the manager putting the players and telling them, don't be standing still. You need to interchange with each other, and that essentially makes their back line static, so that when we're passing in and around the area, as we saw with the goal, their back five were very, very static. Two simple flicks through one pass and one flick, and we're through and scored. So it was an interesting setup on the day. I think I said to you guys, I've got some reservations about it, but ultimately, he outsmarted the other manager.
Ryan, two other players I want to talk about, one forward, one deep. I mean, obviously Lacazette had a game to forget against Slavia Prague on Thursday. I have to give the manager some credit for putting him right back into the starting lineup and giving him a game to kind of cleanse his brain of that miss. And he came through in a big way. He finished that wonderful Norwich City-esque kind of ticky-tacky, point to point weave through their defense for the first goal. And then the second one, I'm going to talk about the way he worked, but I also want you to say a little bit more about the guy who fed him, because Thomas Partey has been taking a hard time when Granit Xhaka's out. And this was a game where we really showed really the skill set. I mean, for him to my eyes, this was probably his tightest game, passing the ball forward. We know he can move the ball forward, but feeding the forward line, he was really sharp. And of course, he finished the game with just a sumptuous long ball through their defense, led Lacazette in stride, and he just whipped it past the keeper and put the game to bed.
Yeah, he's been getting a lot of slander, if you like, online, being called average and overhyped. We hyped up the signing too much. But if you look at it, he didn't play 5 games consecutively, right? He was injured or on whatnot. He wasn't fully fit, but now he's got his legs under him, and he's starting to ease his way into the Premier League. He is just unbelievable, and some of the things that he does you don't notice until he's not there. The interceptions, the passing forward, the ball progression. I will take Thomas Partey losing the ball in the final third if it meant he's winning it back in the defensive third. The ball recoveries, the interceptions are just top class. That I think he had the most ball recoveries out of our whole team in the last 4 games, and it's just great. I don't think we've had a midfielder like that for a long time.
All right, so Jake, I'm going to let you finish up because Sam set the plate for it. But let's talk about the other guy who played with him in the midfield, Granit Xhaka, who's again proven he's another one of these players who takes a lot of slander. We talked about him on the pod last week about the team really notices him when he's not there, but he got to show off his versatility here. He's kind of playing a dual role. He was starting in the middle, that he was moving out wide a lot to let the play go forward on his side. He's been doing that a lot this season, but he really showed it off here and let Saka stay forward, let the attacker stay forward. Now, Arsenal's not going to play a team that's as speed challenged as Sheffield United every week, but again, he's proving he's one of the, maybe he's not the favorite player, he's not the sexiest player, but he's a very important player to this club as it's set up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, he had his issues and he's made a few mistakes, but he's been picked consistently under multiple managers now. There is a reason for it. He's able to, on the whole, control the midfield. He's got a very good passing range. And yeah, he helps the rest of the team keep ticking, keep doing their thing. And yeah, we know similar to Louise, there's a mistake somewhere in there every now and again, but when he plays as well as he can, and he does change the team. Whether or not people think the mistakes are worth it is another judgment to make, but we miss him when he's not there. And playing left back the other day, it was obviously a new role, and yeah, you wouldn't want him to play against a speedy winger, but same as Chambers on the other side. I think it was a really good selection for the team we were playing, and yeah, just kept the ball moving, kept it going upfield, and it was a really solid controlling performance.
All right, that brings us to topic 3 here on the pod. 2 matches, two chances to assess who he has post Tierney injury. Sam, based on what you saw in the first leg against Slavia, based on what we saw against Sheffield, who do you think, and I'm going to pose this to all of you, but what's the lineup you think Arteta should start in this second leg? Obviously, we know with the 1-1, with the road goal in hand, Slavia, you said they play the high line, but I have to think they're going to be a lot more defensive and drop a lot deeper, at least initially in this match.
Yeah, I think for my lineup, I would probably go with Leno in goal, Chambers at right back, Holding and Holding and Mari as 2 centre backs. Then I would probably have Xhaka at left back, Partey and Ceballos, Pepe, Orba, Pepe. If Odegaard's back, then Odegaard. If not, same as it was up top against
Smith
Sheffield
Rowe,
United.
I think, started in the middle, right?
No, against Sheffield United. So Saka.
Oh, I'm
Saka
sorry.
in the
I'm sorry.
middle.
I was thinking of the first leg.
But I'd switch Lacazette out with Orba just for the pace. But obviously, if they defend deeper, then you assess that at half time and make a change as appropriate.
I'm sorry. Who's your left wing in this? I missed that.
I can't even remember who was left wing on what's his name? Martinelli.
You're going to start Martinelli. So you're going to go for the speed. Basically,
Yeah.
what he used to finish, you're going to use at the front and hope that you can nick an early goal just outrunning them.
Basically.
Okay, question for you, looking at your lineup. Why Pablo Mari at left center over Gabriel?
I think if you look at the two performances, whilst they are both very good options to have, both of them, I just think Pablo Mari is a bit more composed at the back. And although he does lack that bit of pace, I wasn't overly concerned about Slavia Prague's pace. Mari's got very good game reading abilities. I just think we need somebody with a bit of composure at the back, a bit of experience. But moving forward, if we were to get through, then Gabriel would be the next game. Because again, if, for example, we were to get rid of Morel, Moreno is a very different proposition to Slavia's forwards.
All right, Ryan, how would you line them up?
I'm just shocked that Sam left Saka out. Couldn't believe
Put him
it.
at left back.
You put Saka up, no?
I put Saka in as number 10 and Saka as left back.
Thought you said if Odegaard was fit, he would start.
Yeah.
If he was available, right?
If.
Now, who are you going to start?
Same team, just Saka on the right instead of Pepe.
So Pepe's going to be your critical, say, 60-minute sub.
Yeah, similar to. What's funny is the team that started last week is probably the team we're going to need this week, because they're probably going to sit back and drop deep, and we're going to need to play in between the lines with Willian on the left. But there's absolutely no chance I'm starting Willian. Definitely Gabriel Martinelli on the left for me.
Where do the youngsters figure into? Oh, Gabriel Martinelli. What about people like you're going to start Saka? You're not concerned about the quad being wrapped in ice this week, and he seemed to be okay after the match.
Yeah, I think it was just a dead leg. I think he'll be fine.
Okay, all right. So, is there anybody who you're not letting on the pitch after that first leg?
Hector Bellerin, Willian, and Lacazette.
Interesting.
I know he scored twice at the weekend, but I can't get that miss out of my head.
I wonder if the manager can't either. Jacob, you get to doff the manager's cap. Who are you putting on the pitch?
Yeah, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I would go Gabriel over Mari, although it's a shame they're both left-footed. I think they're our two best centre-backs. But I'm going to go Gabriel, and it depends. If Odegaard is available, I'd obviously play him, and I'd have Saka on the left wing and Martinelli up top. You know, I don't think
you don't trust either of the veterans.
I still like Aubameyang. I really do, but I don't know. I just think Martinelli is going to press more, and their keeper, it looked like he was kicking the ball for the first time.
He was easily spooked, wasn't he? In that first leg.
And for that alone, I want Martinelli running at him, closing him down, and then if Odegaard's available, I'd have Pepe right with Saka left. But if not, then maybe it would be Saka back to 10 and Martinelli left and Aubameyang up top. So I think a lot of it will depend on whether or not Odegaard is available, but hopefully he is.
All right, so that brings us to topic 4. Obviously, the Prem season goes on. Arsenal is back in the top 10, albeit just inside. They're sitting 9th, but only a few points off, that club from Tottenham in 7th. So that's an immediate target to strive for. Sam, we've talked about players. Ryan just talked about players he doesn't want to trust in Europa anymore. Hector, Cedric certainly not on the left. He's got some concern about the strikers. Arsenal have some youth players that probably are just chomping at the bit to get some time. Balogun being the most notable, but Aziz probably would like some time. The next run of games, a lot of teams at the bottom of the table. Fulham is the next league game. Is this the time of the season, especially, let's say they get through, we're all assuming they're going to get through against Slavia Prague. that you look at, okay, here's a team that's really struggled. They had a bit of a run, but they've really regressed. They're sitting in 19th. This is a time to blood some of those youngsters.
Um, it's a difficult one really, because as much as we as fans would like the youngsters to come in, unfortunately, this is essentially the business end of the season. Realistically, Aziz has been in and around the squad, most noticeably because of the injuries. If there's a spot for him on the bench, and say we're winning the game comfortably 3-0 or 3-1, give him the last 10-15 minutes. Likewise with Balogun. Again, it's with him, it's a difficult one because you still got Orbade, you still got Lacazette and Eddie Nketiah. And with the two latter, you're going to need them on the pitch so they can boost their market value in the summer. But I think if Balogun's contract is announced midweek, I could probably see him getting some minutes at the weekend as a congratulations for signing a new deal. But yeah, as I say, I just think it's a difficult one to put youth in at this point in time.
Okay, so Ryan, if first off, do you share Sam's viewpoint that it's still a little early to be throwing the kids? On the flip, there are some veterans who are kind of going to play out the string of their Arsenal careers who we're all but certain are not coming back. Danny Ceballos is one. El Nenny's probably another one. Even maybe Lacazette, for all we know. There is, as he points out, or is it time to maybe bump up the value of some of these players? Hector Bellerin, for example, who, you know, we'll talk about this in a moment when we get to the summer window in the next topic. You know, some players who really need to be showcased now.
Absolutely. I think the games we've got left can really showcase their ability, inverted ability, and boost their price, because I think we've got, in our last 6 or 7 games, you've got 5 of the bottom 6, I think, or something like that. I think we've got Everton and Chelsea, and then the rest are
West Brom,
Fulham, Brighton,
Crystal Palace,
yeah,
Brighton. I think those are the other 4.
Yeah, and I think if you play them, try and get them some games together, get a bit of confidence, get a bit of game time. Hopefully, it boosts their price up for the summer.
All right. Final topic. Let's move to this. Jake, I'm going to let you start. These gentlemen, I'm going to let them finish up because they've been getting some very tasty rumors for us and some good inside information that's been borne out over time, and they've been hyping it on our Twitter site. So I'm going to let them toot their horns to finish off. But you know, we're looking, as you were saying before we came on the air, everybody's looking to the summer window, even already. Everybody's still pulling for Europa, but everybody's still starting to turn an eye, if they wasn't already, on the summer window and target. So I'm going to let you start by giving me your wish list by position. These guys might be able to fill in some names to your wish list, but going into the summer, what are some positions you're going to target? Say Arsenal really needs to upgrade here, and break it into 2 tiers. Where are you looking for starters and where are you looking for key reserves?
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the ones I think we're looking for reserve / competition. So I'm going to go with a goalkeeper and a left back in those positions. Yeah, I think it's well known we don't have a backup left back, and obviously one keeper's will be going back after his loan spell, and then the other keeper hasn't exactly shone this season.
You're being kind with that.
But yeah, and you know, Leno, I think he needs a good bit of competition, just to get him back to what he was last season when he had Emmy competing. So those are 2 I'm looking at more backup positions. For starters, yeah, I think we need a defensive midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and a right back. yeah, definitely those positions. So there's a few transfers needed, and then maybe a few others depending on how it goes. But I think those, five, I think I said, I think they're priorities.
Okay, so Sam, you were retweeting some information that you got. The Arsenal is working on some key extensions for key players, some veteran, a lot of youth players. I'm going to let you kind of expand on that, because a lot of those names maybe aren't important now. Some of them are not even on the club. One is in France right now, but it looks like they're being penciled in as key players starting in the fall.
Yeah, obviously we all know the importance of Kieran Tierney when he's fit, what he brings to this Arsenal side, and I think the clubs recognise that, and quite rightly is going to reward him with a new contract. In regards to Xhaka, is one of the others that have been mentioned. With this, again, another key player. You can see by the on the open mic videos that Arsenal put out with certain players, you can just hear how what's the word I'm looking for? How visible it is that Xhaka is vocal on the pitch, and he's the one giving direction to the other players. He's the one pulling people across. I was saying to Ryan earlier on, it's good that they do this, because you don't appreciate it even when you're there in the stadium. You've got all the fan noise in and around you. You don't really hear what goes on the pitch. And with Xhaka, he's a leader. Obviously, he's been well documented that his issues, but I think that he's really overcome them. So I think that's again well deserved. And William Saliba, the club obviously see him as the long-term vision at centre back, so it makes sense to tie him down to a long deal. So they're the ones that we're hearing about,
Now,
and we believe that they'll be done at the end of the season.
let me interject with Saliba, because again, there was a lot of complaints. A lot of fans were very critical of the club and of the manager for the way, quote unquote, Saliba was handled. And so there is this lingering belief that he's unhappy and that he would agitate to get his way out. What you're hearing goes completely against that.
Yeah, of course it does. At the end of the day, Saliba obviously had the interviews in France where they were very loaded questions about his position at Arsenal. And if you read through the lines of that, yes, the player was frustrated. Yes, there was a lot that went wrong with certain deals in the summer, and ultimately he had to leave on loan January, I think it was. So the club loaned him out to get that experience, which he's obviously been doing. He's had some very good performances out there. He's made some mistakes, which is to be expected because he's a young centre back. But ultimately, he realizes that he wasn't up to the standard that was required. Obviously, we've got experienced players in front of him as well. So at the end of the day, the best decision for that was to send him out on loan. And a lot of the Saliba's unhappy, etc., comes from accounts that will try and put Arsenal in a negative light, that then gets picked up by, I say, lazy journalism, and then it just grows and grows like from there. And obviously, with the manager not saying a lot about Saliba, it then manifests into fans saying, "Oh, Saliba's unhappy. The manager's got an issue with him, etc., etc." So it's just a case of it was. I wouldn't say poorly handled, but it could have been handled better. Essentially,
To finish this up, though, the club is not planning on signing Saliba to an extension, bringing him back, and just throwing him to the wolves. You've also heard, you've mentioned Saliba, you've mentioned Tierney, and you've mentioned Xhaka, but there's another player who's going to be very important, at least in their thinking, to bringing William Saliba into the fold next season. Correct?
Yeah, that's David Luiz. Arteta's already said that they're going to sit down at the end of the season to discuss a new deal. we've heard that it's a 1-year deal that we're looking to offer him. And ultimately, in my opinion, I think that's a good move considering when we spoke to James Bench quite a while ago, we said about possibly David Luiz moving into the coaching staff, depending on where he feels he is at with his playing career. Obviously, with him signing that 1-year deal, that would put him down the pecking order to probably 5th centre back. So he'll be the emergency cover, and we'll be able to use his experience in the back room. He's very well liked in and around the club. He gives the youngsters a lot of advice. He's a big character and general positive influence around the club, and he's really got the manager's trust.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to move you forward. We're going to move up to the midfield, and then I'm going to let you finish off with the strikers. Now, it's pretty certain there are a couple midfield positions are going to go open. Mohamed El Neni, it seems his agent is making some noise about wanting an extension. That seems to be coming from his camp. I don't hear anything from the club. So, I mean, this is me putting 2 and 2 together. It looks like he's off. Denny Ceballos, given his problems in Europa League, it seems almost certain he's not going to be renewed. Are you hearing any names who possibilities to fill those 2 roles, holding mid, kind of the more advanced box-to-box role?
Yeah, there's been a few names that's been thrown in the hat that we've heard. As Basuma from Brighton, obviously he's the well-known quantity in online at the moment. Everyone knows we've been linked with him. He's talked up the move quite a few times. We've heard about Dennis Zakaria from Borussia Mönchengladbach, but that is one that takes other teams to say no first, because obviously the likes of PSG, Manchester City, the Bayern Munich, they're all interested in him. There's been Frank Kessie from AC Milan for the number 6 role, and then the advanced number 8 role that you mentioned. There's been some names there: Christopher Nkunku from Leipzig and Hussein Mawar from Lyon.
He's back in the mix.
His name has been thrown in the hat again.
Okay. But now moving forward, this is where it's going to get interesting. Obviously, as with El Neni, Alexander Lacazette has expressed interest in extension. The manager keeps pushing that topic, kicking that can down the road, saying, we'll sit down when the season is over. Now, I don't know how you feel. To me, that reads like no. But it seems that regardless of whether they've decided yes or no, he's doing right by himself in the club, because with his finish, he's raising his value. Have you heard of a market for him outside of Arsenal? Or first off, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Do you think he's staying? Do you think he's going? And if you think he is leaving, where might he wind up?
Yeah, I believe he's going. I think him and Eddie Nketiah will both leave. Arsenal have opened a pathway for Florian Balogun, which we brought you the news last week or the week before that he had agreed a new deal at the club. So that pathway for him is there. I think the strikers will be Aubameyang, Balogun, and I think Arteta is going to push Martinelli through the middle. So they'll be our strikers, and I think we'll look to get an exciting left winger in the summer.
Have you heard any names to that end, or that's still very hush hush?
I have, but obviously you all know the name, obviously, but I'm not actually allowed to say the name yet.
All right,
but don't worry.
On that teaser, on that note, keep follow us on Twitter. These gentlemen are, they give you as much as they can, so you will be the first. And if you see, they've been very upfront about reminding people that they got some of this information weeks and in some cases months ago. All right, so you just talked about. Let's talk about the homegrown players who probably not coming back. You said Eddie Nketiah. Let's talk about him. Looks like Eddie, as Sam and Jacob said, is going to be given a chance to raise his value. Does he? It sounds like he's already got a market. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Premier League clubs, Brighton, Southampton, West Ham, all inquired for him in January. They're all still very, very much interested. I think if Danny Ings leaves Southampton, I think that would be the likeliest option for Nketiah, because I don't think West Ham want a goal poacher. I think they want someone who can hold the ball up and obviously Eddie Nketiah can't. Wait, I don't want to say can't do that. He's just not very good at it. So I do think it'll be between Brighton and Southampton. Hopefully, we can swing a deal with Brighton and swap Eddie for Basuma.
That would be good business, even if I think a little sweetener would have to come in from Arsenal's side. I think if he was available, the club would jump at that. Finally, two names out on loan, doing very well, in fact, for West Brom. Let's start with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. He was man of the match in their win on the weekend. He's, I think, made it clear that he's not interested in coming back and being a bench player for this club. He's one that looks to be going out. Does he have a market to your ear?
Yes. Wolves, Southampton, and obviously West Brom if they stay up.
And finally, Joe Willock. I think he's the real, will he stay, will he go? Because he is playing well for Newcastle right now.
Yeah, I think he will stay at Newcastle for the season. I think he'll stay on loan there for next season.
Just another year, 1 year loan to see if he develops even further. Arsenal's going to hedge their bets with him.
Yeah, because I don't think he's played enough games to get the value that we want, per se. I think if he has another full season out on loan and performs, then we can get what we want for him at the end of that season.
Okay, we've reached injury time in this episode of the pod. Jacob, we're going to bring you back. Two matches coming up, two vital matches. Prediction time. Let's start with, I mean, they're all important, but let's start with the Fulham match. How do you think they'll do? How strong a squad do you think Mikel will play on the weekend? And what do you think that result will be?
Yeah, I think we will see a few rotations and rests against Fulham, particularly if the game beforehand goes well, because then it will be a shift of focus, I think. But I still think whatever team we put out should be enough to beat Fulham. But I'll give a conservative score. I say we'll win 2-1.
All right. And then the big match, the rematch, Thursday. How will they do against Slavia Prague in the Czech Republic?
I think we've learned a lesson. And I have seen stats going around. They've got a very good home record, but I'm going for a 2-0 win.
Okay. Sam, in that order, Fulham and then the rematch against Slavia Prague.
Fulham, I'll say 3-1 win. And as Jacob said, they have got an impressive home record, but records are there to be broken. So I'm going to go 3-0 as well.
3-0. Okay. Ryan, you get the final word again in order. In the league, Fulham, and then how will they do in the Europa League?
Fulham, I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal. Slavia Prague, I'm going to go 3-1. I think, as Jacob said, the boys have learned their lesson.
And I'm going to kind of do an amalgam of you. I'm with you guys. I think they win both matches. I think 2-1, yes. Perhaps a sloppy game. Fulham, even though they're floundering, they're still fighting for their lives, and that's a club that fights. I think we're going to play a reduced side against them. So I think 2-1 sounds fair. In the first match, I'm going to say 3-0. I think it might take a while to get that first goal, but once the first goal goes in, I think that's when Slavia has to come at them, and Arsenal speed will tell. They're a faster club. They're a more athletic club. They're going to do what they should have done in London. All right. Thank you. It's been an issue-packed and a topic-packed issue of the Daily Gooner Pod. We want to thank all of you out there for following us here on YouTube. And of course, we want to thank all of you who listen to us via podcast, who follow us on Twitter. You can find all of these gentlemen. You find us at Daily Gooner, Sam for Sam, at Daily Gooner Ryan for Ryan, Cowboys Nation 1 for me, and Jacob, we would share yours with the internet world.
Yeah, it's at Jacob Weeks SHU.
All right, and on that note, we look forward to 2 Arsenal wins this weekend. Hopefully, 2 big Arsenal wins, and we will see you all again next Tuesday right here. For Jacob, for Sam, for Ryan, I'm Raphael. We bid you good night.